What are the pros and cons of living in Mississauga, Ontario? That's one of the most common questions I get asked by people thinking about making a move to the area. So in today's video, we're going to take a look at the good, and we're actually going to take a look at the bad as well. Now, you're going to want to stick around into the end because some of the bad might actually cost you money. If we haven't met yet, my name is Mike. I am a local realtor here in the GTA, and on this channel, you'll find real estate information that no one else is sharing with you. Okay, let's just get right into it. Mississauga is located just west of Toronto, about 30 minutes to the downtown core, depending upon traffic, of course. It is part of Peel Region, along with Brampton and Caledon. It's about a 20-minute drive to Oakville and about 30 minutes to Burlington to the west. Mississauga is home to Toronto's major airport, that's Pearson Airport, and you can get to it from most places within Mississauga in about 15 to 30 minutes. On the topic of location, this is actually one of the biggest perks and pros of living in Mississauga. You have easy access to pretty much everywhere in the GTA, especially the West GTA. So as I mentioned, you're only about 20 to 30 minutes from Oakville and Burlington. You're about 15 minutes to the airport, depending upon where you are in the city. Remember, Mississauga is a huge city itself. And then if you need to get into Toronto, you're only about 30 minutes to downtown, again, depending upon traffic and the time of day that you're going to leave. But pretty much everywhere within the GTA is super accessible from Mississauga. So if you're going to be commuting into Toronto, for example, this is a really manageable place to live. You have 7 GO train stations all over the city, from the north to central to South Mississauga. South Mississauga is probably the best spot to live in if you're going to be commuting, just because you have the Lakeshore West line. This is more of a straight shot into Union Station downtown, but also you have all day two-way service 7 days per week, whereas other lines within Mississauga, you only get them during morning and evening rush hour. So if, for example, you are commuting, that's not a problem 9 to 5, but if you want to get into the city on the weekend, for example, catch a Jays game, catch a Toronto FC game, or just go to an event or a concert, you're going to want to be in the southern part of Mississauga along that Lakeshore line. Otherwise, it's only a bus that gets you in on the weekends. And if you're a 2-commuter household, let's say that one person is going to be working in downtown Toronto, but the other person is going to be working in Waterloo or Hamilton or Scarborough, then Mississauga is a great place to live, sort of as a compromise. And not that you would choose a city just for that, but it's kind of a starting point for people. They go, well, we have these different places where we work. We both need to get to very different areas. Where can we be exactly? So Mississauga kind of ticks that box. And I would say overall, it's probably the best located suburb within the GTA. One of my favorite things about living in Mississauga, and another huge pro, is just how incredibly well planned the network of parks, trails, and community centers are here. There are over 500 parks that cover about 10% of the city's land. So Mississauga has just an enormous amount of parks for you to explore. You could live here for years and years and not be able to explore all of them. Some of my personal favorite parks include Riverwood Conservancy. This is 150 wooded acres with trails, creeks, and there are weekend conservation programs. This is really great for kids and families. Then another personal favorite of mine is Arundel Park. I love going on the walking trails here. You get an amazing view of the Credit River and the ravines. You can do bird and nature watching, or even fish for the salmon or trout that are in the river. Most people use it for the trails and the huge picnic areas to bring their kids or host parties. And in the winter, there's also a tobogganing hill. In South Mississauga, you have Rat Ray Marsh, which is this sort of rare lakeside wetland with a boardwalk. One time when I was on a walk with my daughter and my wife, we actually ran into a family of deers here, which was a pretty amazing thing to see. Sometimes scary too, because these are very large animals, but you can always see great nature within this area. And finally, another favorite is Lake Aquitaine Park. This is in Meadowvale. You can walk the trails here. There's an outdoor fitness circuit, a fishing dock, a spray pad, and playground for kids. This is a super popular spot next to the Meadowvale Community Center. And that's just the outdoor space. On the inside, you have over 30 community centers and arenas. There are just so many places to go within Mississauga. Every neighborhood essentially has their own community center, or you're never too far from one, which is unlike a lot of cities where you have to travel travel, a decent distance to find an arena or to go for swimming lessons. In Mississauga, you're never really more than 10 minutes away from one. Some top spots include the Mississauga Valleys Community Center, the Erin Meadows Community Center and Library. Then you have the new Churchill Meadows Community Center, and another personal favorite of mine is the River Grove Community Center. These are all modern, accessible centers with year-round swim lessons, drop-in sports, youth programs, and community classes. And on the reading and studying front, after a long renovation, the Hazel McCallion Library opened next to Celebration Square, right in the heart of the city center. The library spans 4 floors with quiet study, family programs, and easy access to parks, and of course, Celebration Square. Overall, there are about 17 public libraries within Mississauga all across the city. So just like community centers, you're never really far from your local library. Just a really quick break here. If you're finding value in this video, just hit the like button below. It will help people find content just like this. Okay, let's get right back to it. One of the things that people get wrong about Mississauga is assuming it's just a bedroom community for Toronto. And it's not. Mississauga is actually one of the biggest economic engines of the GTA. This may come as a surprise to some, but the city is actually home to the Canadian headquarters of more than 70 Fortune 500 companies. And while in most other cities around the GTA, you have to leave in order to find employment, Mississauga is the opposite. A lot of people live and work in Mississauga, and a lot of people actually drive to Mississauga for work. So it's actually a big hub for employment. So if you're tired of the long commute or you're looking to switch to hybrid, for example, then Mississauga is a good landing spot. This kind of goes back to location again. You're not just centrally located, but there's actually employment as well. It not only gets you closer to jobs, but there are jobs within the city itself. Another big pro about Mississauga is that you never have to actually leave the city to get everything that you want, and it makes daily living that much easier. You don't have to go into Toronto to get food. You don't need to go into Toronto to get retail. You never really need to leave the city. It has everything that you need. You've got 2 major indoor malls, Square One, which is one of the largest in Canada, and the Erin Mills Town Centre, which covers the West End. And in the North End for open air shopping, there's the Heartland Town Center. This spans 180 stores across 2 million square feet. It's the kind of place where you can get everything done in one trip, from Costco to Structube to Best Buy. And if you're into food, Mississauga doesn't pretend to be the foodie capital of the world by any stretch, but you can find pretty much everything from every culture represented here. So if you're in the mood for literally any type of dish, you can find it in Mississauga. And a lot of places around the GTA can't quite say that. You pretty much have to go in Toronto if you're from the east end of the city, for example. If you're living in Hamilton or Burlington or Oakville, you're going to be traveling actually into Mississauga for food. So this is one of the big pros of living here, is not only the retail, but you have a pretty solid food scene overall, and it's growing every year. And on top of that, speaking about the diversity of the city and all the different cultures, you get huge, legit cultural events here. These are pretty full-scale events that happen year-round. You have popular ones like Carasaga, Muslim Fest, Bollywood Monster Mashup, the Mississauga Latin Festival. You have other ones like Polish Day or the Philippine Festival. There are so many festivals for pretty much every culture all throughout the year. So living in Mississauga gives you great options for not only retail, food, cultural events. It's just a great place overall to live if you're seeking things from different cultures. Another big pro about living in Mississauga is the quality of education. The public and Catholic schools here for the most part score above the provincial average, both at the elementary and high school level. Generally, there's only maybe a couple of pockets that I would tell people to avoid when it comes to living in Mississauga, but overall, you can find pretty good quality education throughout the city. And if you want to know the latest rankings and reports, you can get them directly from my site by visiting the link in the description below. And for people who are looking to make a forever move or just don't want to move multiple times, you can move here to Mississauga and not only get good quality education at the elementary and secondary level, but there are post-secondary institutions here as well. You have the University of Toronto, Mississauga. This is part of the University of Toronto. It enrolls roughly 16,700 students, and there are over 180 programs in 90 fields on a modern campus in a great spot in the central part of the city. And UTM has become very popular over the years. In fact, they've built a new student facility that is going to have about 1,400 beds because of the popularity and growth of the school. And for college-bound students, you have the Sheridan College, the Hazel McCallion campus, which is directly in the city center. This has over 10,400 students and 38 full-time programs, including a school of business. The programs here can also create a solid pathway for someone looking to transfer to a university. And so to sum up all of the pros, I would say that you never really need to leave Mississauga. It is not a bedroom community for Toronto. It has everything you need here, from retail to food to cultural events, jobs, quality education, parks, rec centers, everything. And it's all in a central location that you can get to pretty much anywhere in the GTA in a short amount of time. But now let's take a look at some of the cons. To start off, one of the biggest cons is that there's not really a true downtown when it comes to Mississauga. Now, if you're moving from Toronto or even a smaller city with a strong downtown core, this might throw you off a little bit. Mississauga technically has a downtown core, and it's centered around the Square One Mall and the city center that is there with all of the condos, but it kind of lacks a street level retail culture. A lot of the retail is large stores or chain driven. There are lots of things like dentists and nail spas and sort of everyday services like that, but you don't have a lot of patios or bars or independent cafes or restaurants or shops in that way. And can we please get a proper bakery downtown at some point? So while the density is there and a lot of major services are there, it's just kind of lacking that culture and that charm and that character that really brings a downtown core to life. And while the area does have some family amenities, especially Celebration Square where all of these events happen, you don't really have a lot of green spaces, parks, and playgrounds for them to play. And then when it comes to younger people in their 20s, early 30s, you don't have much of a nightlife here. We have all these condos, but we haven't really given young people a lot to do in this area. So if you're hoping for a vibrant, walkable downtown core, the Square One area doesn't really provide that in the kind of way that I think people are really hoping and expecting. With that said, there are a couple of pockets around Mississauga that can provide you at least some of that feel. If you want nightlife and walkability, then Port Credit is where most locals will point you. Port Credit is right by the lake and it has lots of pubs and patios and restaurants. This kind of feels like its own proper sort of neighborhood, but it's right by the lake, so it's not easily accessible by everybody within Mississauga, especially if you're coming from the north. Streetsville is another pocket that sort of has that walkability that people are looking for, restaurants, little independent shops, but there's no real nightlife here to speak of. It's more of that small town Main Street vibe. So while Mississauga doesn't really have a true downtown urban core in the same way that you would expect of a city of over 700,000 people, there are pockets that you can find that have what you're looking for, just have to know where to go. Another con of living in Mississauga, and this is true of most cities around the GTA, is that it is car dependent. Mississauga was simply built with the car in mind. And even though the city has grown so much over the years, it still sort of feels like the same suburban road network of the past. You don't have many walkable neighborhoods, you don't have great connections with bike lanes, for example. You pretty much need a car to get anywhere in and around the city. Now layer in the traffic and it just leads to a lot of congestion and a lot of frustration for people who are trying to get around. With that said though, the traffic around Mississauga and congestion is not that bad. You just really need to avoid certain pockets at certain times of the day. The next con that we'll take a look at is tied to the car dependency in the city. This is sort of a con for most cities around the GTA, and it's that public transportation still feels kind of incomplete. And this one might be a con for now, but to be fair to Mississauga, it is a lot better than other cities around the GTA. I just think that with the population being over 700,000, the expectation is that public transportation would be a lot stronger. As I mentioned in the pros, Mississauga is not just a bedroom community for Toronto, but it still has that reputation to some, and creating its own better public transportation network rather than sort of the patchwork that it kind of feels at the moment goes a long way to shedding that reputation. Yes, there is public transportation here. For instance, you have My Way, which is the local bus service that goes all around the city. It is well connected, but unless you live near one of the major corridors, it can feel a bit spotty and it can kind of take long long to get places. There's also the GO train, which connects Mississauga to downtown Toronto and tons of other places. Now, this works really well. The GO train is probably one of the better aspects of living within the GTA when it comes to public transportation. But unless you live on the Lakeshore West line, that is going to run two-way all-day service. It can also mean that you don't get service all the time. You have to take the bus, which can take longer. You can still get stuck in traffic. And of course, it is not easy to get to. A lot of times you're gonna have to drive to one of these stations. If you're gonna be taking the bus, it's gonna be a long commute. Now, Mississauga has made some progress when it comes to public transportation. For instance, you have the BRT. This is the Bus Rapid Transit Line, also known as the Transitway. This runs east to west across the entire city. It has its own lane and connects you to major spots like Erin Mills and even the Kipling subway station in Toronto. And the big one is the Ontario LRT. This is light rail transit. And as of the recording of this video, it's not quite complete just yet, but it will be soon. And when it is, it's going to be really good for the city, as it will connect all the way from the north in Brampton to the south all the way to the lake. And that's a big deal because it's going to connect a huge portion of the city, very dense areas, and it's going to provide a proper spine of transportation for the city. So as you can see, while the pieces are coming together, it can still feel a little bit incomplete, and you're still for the most part going to be relying on a car. And the last con that we'll take a look at today is home affordability. Now, if you're considering moving to Mississauga or the GTA, in general, housing is expensive. And typically, the closer you get to Toronto, the more expensive it gets, outside of cities like Oakville and Markham. If you're looking for new detached or even townhomes here in Mississauga, the city is completely built out. There are no new affordable homes here. And that's why so many people, for example, looked at Brampton to the north as a place to move and how it's overtaken Mississauga's population in recent years. They had the land there to build out, areas like Milton as well, North Oakville. There's just no new homes here, so that new home affordability is just not here in Mississauga. When it comes to the median home price in Mississauga, for a detached, it's about 1.3 million. For a semi, it's 950,000. For a townhome, it's about 995,000. For a condo townhome, it is 750,000, and for a condo apartment is 560,000. Now, home prices do fluctuate, so there's a couple of things you can do to make sure that you're getting the most accurate pricing. First, there is a link in the video description below to my website. It is going to detail every single neighborhood in Mississauga along with every home type, and you can see the current prices, or you can just reach out to me directly. Again, there is a link in the video description below to all of my contact info. And on that note of affordability, there is one more thing I want to talk about that no one else really talks about when it comes to living in Mississauga and some of the issues around affordability. It's that there is a bit of a youth drain, people moving out of the city because they just simply can't afford it. And Mississauga is one of the few cities in the GTA that actually saw its population decline over the past few years. The younger generation grew up here, but they can't exactly afford to stay, so they're choosing to leave. You have options in other cities, even Toronto, for example, when it comes to rentals that are similarly priced. So they're choosing Toronto over Mississauga for various reasons. You can imagine things like a true downtown core, some more proper nightlife, even more easier access to jobs. So we have seen a little bit of a youth drain over the last few years. With that said, there are still windows of opportunity here in Mississauga, especially for the younger generation and for first-time buyers. You have areas like Meadowvale, Erin Mills, Cooksville. There are still family-friendly communities that have affordable homes. Some of them might just be a little bit more outdated. You're not exactly going to get that brand new modern home within these areas. However, they're in great established communities in areas that will continue to develop in the future. And so that's the real deal on Mississauga, the pros, the cons, and everything in between. For some people, the location, the family-friendly amenities, the jobs, the retail, the food, all of these options, they are great for them. But for others, the lack of a true downtown, that vibrant, walkable sort of nightlife that they're seeking, then Mississauga might not check every box. If you're seriously thinking about making a move to Mississauga and you want to learn more about it, then you're going to want to watch this video next. It has every detail about the city you could possibly imagine and more. And if you're ready to learn more about Mississauga real estate, then you can visit the link in the description below for the list of preferred homes.